The GC bottle results released across the national territory showing a sharp contrast, or the results showing a sharp contrast of what prevailed last year. In 2017, the number of successful candidates was increased according to the General Certificate of Education Board. In this newscast, we bring to you the statistics. Also ahead, we talk about more than a dozen of houses that were visited by flames in the town of Limbe, southwest region of the country at the time when the people were observing the ghost town. Plus, we talk about the extreme bad state of roads here in the country's economic capital, Douala, precisely in Bonabera of the Douala 4 municipality. The national organizing sector of the Social Democratic Front Party is our guest tonight. Stay with us. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you back from the weekend. You're watching the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television. Before we talk about the General Certificate of Education examination results that have been made public, that was barely a few minutes ago, we take you to Bonabera of the Douala 4 municipality to talk about the extreme bad states of some roads here in the country's economic capital, Douala. City dwellers say that the bad roads are hampering circulation and equally disrupting the smooth functioning of activities in several parts of the city of Douala. One of these roads is the stretch that is leading to Mabanda through Foreba, that is in Bonabera of the Douala 4 municipality. Our reporter Armstrong Fomisanda takes us to Bonabera. His report.
The stretch of road leading to Mabanda in Quartier Bileng, Foreba neighborhood of Bonabera Douala 4 subdivision is in an advanced state of dilapidation. The large potholes have given rise to a pool of standing water, posing a problem to road users, local inhabitants and the health of the population. Locals say the road has not only been a problem to free circulation, but a challenge to their children who face enormous difficulties using the road to and from school every day. When it rains heavily, these people are forced to stay indoors as the road becomes practically inaccessible. The mayor of the Douala 4 municipality, elected since 2013, says this road has been among his priority projects.
Since they appointed me like a Lord Mayor in Bonabera, the first decision I took is to arrange the road of Foreba. I gave the job to some contractor who did a bad job. And since you can ask population of this quarter of Quartier Bileng, I used to arrange this road twice a year.
Given the present state of the road, which the mayor says he renovates at least twice a year, Mayor KUMAZE sent 3 trucks full of laterite to fill the potholes. The population expressed gratitude to him for his gesture.
We thank Mr. Mayor where he don't send with this camion.
We are grateful to the mayor for sending us these trucks full of laterite. He does that at least every year and we are happy. We expect him to do more.
We are glad because Mayor, the member, he fine for we, but we need make it do more.
Like Oliver Twist, they ask for the tarring and extension of the road to the far end of Foreba.
That is for me, Armstrong Sanda. They're reporting now. We talk about the Cameroon General Certificate of Education, the GC Advanced and Ordinary levels, and the Technical Advanced and Ordinary level results that have been made public. That was today in Cameroon, following a communique from the Minister of Secondary Education, Dr. Nalova Lyonga. Performance in the examination this year has greatly improved as compared to the situation that prevailed in 2017. The GC Advanced level has 67%. As compared to last year, that was 35%. The ordinary level scored 50%, in contrast to what prevailed last year, that was 25.29%. The technical advanced level section scored is 73.4% as against 23% for the year 2017. And the technical ordinary level this year, we have 58% as against 28.4%. And the communique says that the candidates should visit their institutions or the Ministry of Secondary Education website for their various results. We are going to be bringing you results or details on that in our subsequent newscast and reactions. We are going to be having the reactions of the various successful candidates, and the results have been made public at the time when the fire hit Seka Street, that is a neighborhood in Limbe, southwest region of the country. 14 houses were reduced to ashes. The incident occurred in the early hours of this morning when locals were indoors and they were observing the ghost town. It was therefore easy for local inhabitants to contain the flame. That is what it took for our reporter Davidson Maimo to get to the scene of the incident. It was practically difficult because no vehicle, motorbike was circulating in the morning, and even in the afternoon in that part of the country was a similar atmosphere. In the southwest regional headquarters of Boya, other parts of Bamenda, that is the two Anglophone regions of the country, where the streets were practically empty this Monday. The cause of the fire disaster, which took place in Limbe, southwest region of the country, up to now remains a mystery. We, of course, will be telling you as well more in our subsequent newscast. Now, the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon has crowned this week a week of long prayers for peace, with a donation to assist the refugees that have so far been hit by the current socio-political crisis in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon, especially for the internally displaced persons. Reverend Ikum Manfred, that is the senior pastor of the Presbyterian Church in Boya, equally called for ceasefire as far as the situation is concerned. Derek Jato tells us more in this report.
The Boya Station Church bell of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon. It is a Sunday, but today's service is special.
The Presbyterian Church in Cameroon has decided to declare today as a day for all the Christians to support our brothers and sisters who are refugees in nearby countries and internally displaced persons. All the things that are collected today, the offerings, the foodstuffs, the clothes, everything will be forwarded to our brothers and sisters who seek refuge in other places and who are displaced.
These Boya Station Christians for some time now have been crying to God for mercy. For things are falling apart, and also fast.
People in Boya are now living in total panic and fear. There is tension in the air. You can smell tension in the air of Boya. And we think that this ought not to be if our country has to develop before 2035.
Reverend Ikum Manfred, the senior pastor of Presbyterian Church Boya Station, is begging for ceasefire between the Ambazonian Defense Forces and the Cameroonian military.
A ceasefire will bring calmness in our environment and peace will return to our land, because everybody will be able to express his or herself as concerns the crisis.
You are our oasis in the desert.
In the homily drawn from the book of Apostle Paul, his letter to the Philippians, the officiating minister, Reverend Mrs. Tabi Pascaline, called on the Christians to trust God, especially in this trial moment.
It is as clear as broad daylight that we are in crisis in our country. We need to go down on our knees and ask for peace. If we can put in the word, put the word into practice, then I believe our God will surely answer us.
The funds and material gifts these Presbyterian Christians of Boya Station are contributing are destined here in Nigeria, where these tens of thousands of saddened Cameroonians are seeking refuge under deplorable conditions.
And the assistance, financial and material assistance that is being extended across the national territory, a 7-day program organized by the Presbyterian Church to pray for peace in the country, that is ended today at the Presbyterian Church in Bona Musadi, here in the country's economic capital, Douala. The program ended Sunday with a fundraising and material contribution to assist the displaced and affected persons in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. The money and material items are due to be evacuated to the affected regions for eventual distribution. Let's now have an excerpt of the Reverend Pastor Mickey Hans Abia. He was speaking to Equinox Television.
The week has been a very successful one. We actually started by congratulating the moderator of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon for that wisdom, for that knowledge, for that inspiration, because as a church we believe that prayers is the key of everything. We had the opportunity to lament, to cry. We have the opportunity to discuss the situation of our brothers and sisters in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, to pray for them, for peace, to pray for peace generally in our nation, Cameroon, and to pray also for the leadership of our country. The moderator asked us to end this week of prayer with a compassionate donation, which the churches are taking very seriously. Here in Bonamusadi, we just did it. The people were very willing to make those donations. There are bags upon bags of material gifts in our vestries already, and a huge sum of money has been collected today.
And it is happening at the time when the Catholic Church in Cameroon is still mourning the death of the parish priest of Bomaka in Boya, southwest region of the country. Reverend Father Alexander Sop Nugi was brutally murdered, according to inhabitants as well as human rights lawyers. One of them, who is Barrister Agbobala, he was killed. That was last week in that part of the country. It has so far been condemned by Anglophone activists as well as Barrister Agbobala, the incident that has left many in shock. The church is equally mourning for the death of the Reverend Pastor, or the Reverend of the Catholic Church in the southwest region of Cameroon. Now, San Minas and Mongo of the Mongo as well as Mundeka beaches have come to an end of their training on how to better organize themselves and sustainably carry out their activities. It is an initiative of the Ministry of Mines, Industries and Technological Development. Details once again with Darijato.
Zhang Moses, with his star name here as countryman, is at step 2 of the sand excavation chain. Another colleague is at step 1.
He's taking it from step 1 to step.
And another at the 0 level. We are at the Mongo Beach in Tiko subdivision. Zhang Moses, like others, have been mining here for over 15 years, but very little to show for.
Well, for me, almost about 15 years. So they can also become actors, not only at the level of excavation here, but collectively they can also, involve themselves at the other levels of the chain, like, transportation, distribution, transformation.
It is against this backdrop that the initiative to enable artisanal mining profitable for actors to earn decent employment, which is jointly carried out by the cooperation between Africa, the Caribbean and Pacific on the one hand, and the European Union on the other, was launched in Cameroon in 2016 by the Cameroon Minister of Mines, Industry and Technological Development.
Even the toothpaste that we are using, they sand in toothpaste. So we didn't know. Even the jeans that you are wearing, they use sand to produce jeans. So we have so many things that come out of sand, and sand is being used everywhere. To build a nation, you cannot build without looking for sand.
And Kong Hilltop Association for Development Nadeboya won the trust of the state to carry out this pilot project on the field.
And we as NADEF were selected, and so this project sets out to not only empower them, raise the awareness on environment, health and safety and the rest of that, but also to help organize the sector so that when they have viable cooperatives, they can have a voice.
Today they now train Mongo and Mudeka artisanal sand miners are not only receiving their miners card, but are also members of their newly created cooperatives.
It will bring a big change because we are now linked up with the administration, and also because now since we have the cards, we are now like professionals.
Mrs. Kono Pauline, Inspector of Mines and the project coordinator, says the realization of this project is an indication of a safe future.
And that report there by Derek Jato brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Time for us to meet our guest. We shall be right back. As I said earlier, in this newscast, we are having as guest the National Organizing Secretary of the Social Democratic Front Party, John DANGLE KUMAZE. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us once again tonight on Talking Point.
Good evening, Mimi. Good evening, dear televiewers of Equinox Television. Thank you for inviting me, Mimi.
We thank you for coming. The church is praying for peace in the country. Before we talk about what is now described as a fragmented opposition in Cameroon today, the church has been praying for peace. We see the Catholic Church intensifying prayers, a similar situation for the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon. How can this help foster peace in Cameroon in general, and particularly in the northwest and the southwest regions?
This is the only key that can unlock any misunderstanding between brothers who are fighting each other. Prayers is a very powerful instrument, and we think that what the churches are doing is exactly what is within their competence. The others have the power of the weapon and the bullet. The churches have the power of prayers. Prayers is the only way, I think, if God that we serve listens to our prayers, I hope and I trust we have our hope in God that He is going to do something to bring an end to this crisis, which is a man-made crisis, which is a crisis that was created by President Paul Biya himself for his incompetence to handle a strike, a social strike which started, and he thought that it was an easy thing to go by. So I think the church has come in at a time when everybody is desperate, and whenever you are desperate, you turn to God. We have turned to God and we pray together with the church, and we hope that God is going to hear our prayers.
Does it mean that the church has a final solution? Because you say we are in a desperate situation. Is the church the final solution to this crisis?
The church can be a final solution, because in other countries you have seen what the churches have done. Like when the Democratic Republic of Congo was in fire, you saw what the church was doing in order to bring peace. But because we are dealing with a head of state who himself a former seminarian, I do not know whether he really believes in God. He believes in grandmasters. So I think that the power of God is going to overcome the power of grandmasters.
Apart from prayers, like you cited the case of the Democratic Republic of Congo, we saw political action from bishops and prelates in the Democratic Republic of Congo as far as transition and change in power is concerned. Do you think that it is enough ending only at the level of prayers? We know that the church in the country has cited or given a series of recommendations to address the Anglophone crisis.
Exactly.
But do you think it would end only at the level of prayer, or ending only at the level of prayer could be the solution?
It is not ending only at the level of prayer. The churches have taken human and concrete measures to write to the government to propose solutions to them. They have even proposed to step in to see whether they could bring the two factions together. But unfortunately, he who is holding the knife and the yam is unable to give them a listening ear. So I think the church has done so much. Even right now, what they are praying and doing is they are contributing finances, foodstuffs, and other material to help the internally displaced and the refugees in Nigeria. That is action. So I think that they are not only at the level of prayers, yes, they are also doing something to alleviate the sufferings of the people who are now victims of poor governance.
The affected population. Now we talk about what is now being called as the divided opposition in Cameroon, following the decision by a good number of opposition parties to rally behind the CPDM natural candidate, President Pobia, has been in power for close to 40 years now. What could be the implications or the stakes of such a move on the part of the opposition, those that have been followed by Cameroonians, seen by Cameroonians as solutions to some of the political problems plaguing the country?
Well, let us first of all examine what a political party is. Is it an individual, or it's actually an association? As we know, political parties are associations. And then you have individuals who just stand up one morning and present uncompleted documents, perhaps to the SDO, and takes a temporary receipt and say they have formed a political party. As far as I know that the law on the creation of political parties specifies that the executive of that party must have at least 7 representatives from the 7 regions out of the 10 regions in Cameroon. But there are some of these so-called political parties, their leaders are all by themselves. They are not even up to a word in the Social Democratic Front.
They are not representative?
They are not representative. If they were representative, they could have at least held conventions towards these elections. You saw the Social Democratic Front, we held a convention in order to designate a candidate. But all these 20 political parties, I don't think that any of them has ever held any, even an assembly. I say we have in the SDF, you have the National Executive Committee, you have the Regional Executive Committee, you have the Electoral District Executive Committee, you have the wards.
Some of them are
Some of them have not, their militants are not up to a word of the SDF.
Some of these opposition leaders were actually being followed by hundreds of Cameroonians, because you can see from the reactions even on social media, even on platforms like this one, how people are reacting negatively following that move. We saw some of them contesting to unseat the current regime in 2011.
I'm talking about their own party militants. I'm not talking about Cameroonians who were sympathetic with them. There are some Cameroonians who are not members of political parties, but they sympathize with political parties. So that perhaps they were sympathetic with these people who claim that the leaders of political parties.
So it is not at all a threat to the opposition, the Social Democratic Front and other upcoming opposition like the MRC and also.
You talk about threat. I think it is President Biya who is threatened by our candidate. Our candidate is a very powerful candidate that the population has already adopted him. So Biya is threatened and he is not at ease. That is why he has to go around and rally around people who cannot even produce 1% of votes in their own, all of them put together. I don't think that all of them can even produce 1% of the votes cast. So I think that it is Biya who is threatened. We have a strong candidate, and whether the opposition, as we say, that comes together or not, because it's not all the 300 or so political parties that we consider like political parties. There are a few political parties that we considered, and we had been in a coalition with some of them in the past.
Do you think that a coalition is possible? You say in the past, but we are talking about the present.
The coalition,
in 2018, is it possible?
You see, our worry with the coalition is that we have steadfastly requested for a 2-round presidential election. If this coalition was which is being publicized even by the press, was after a first round, then we would understand. But at the moment, the measuring rod of a coalition is what? The measuring rod is what a political party represents in the landscape of Cameroon. And you know that the SDF is a party that is represented all over the republic. Some of these so-called leaders that went to Yaoundé, who cannot even manage a party. You have a leader among them who was a former UPC. Then later on he went to Manidem. Manidem was handed over to him. He was president of Manidem. He couldn't manage. He was sent off. He now went and formed what he calls a new movement for popular, what I cannot understand. And today, instead of running that party, he runs to CPDM. What I want to say is that all these political parties that have gone to CPDM have forfeited the little confidence that the population had on them. I hope that they will not come back again for any other election.
They should stay within
the
ranks of
the CPDM. During the municipal and legislative elections, they should join the CPDM and go in. They should not come back and say that they are coming to... what they did is a provocation to the population of Cameroon.
Now, before we
I was even ashamed in their place.
In few days from now, the Social Democratic Front will be holding the next meeting in Tarikon, northwest region of Cameroon, yes. That is the residence of the chairman of the principal opposition party in Cameroon, a region that has been hit by conflict for several months now. Yes. How is the SDF envisaging carrying out campaigns in a region hit by crisis where dozens or hundreds are being internally displaced and others are actually out of the country seeking refuge in Nigeria? How would you go about that in the northwest and the southwest region, which is the stronghold or are the strongholds of the party?
It is regrettable, Mimi, that President Paul Biya had to convene these elections at the moment without solving the crisis that he himself created. You see, the Constitution of the Republic states that the President of the Republic can postpone elections in case of serious crisis. But as dishonest as he is, even not taking into consideration his age, instead of saying that we are faced with a serious crisis, he said that the political agenda was, I don't know what you call chauvinism in English. What does that mean? That it was conflicting, so they couldn't handle the elections. He is a dishonest person. The problem that caused...
But the SDF is taking part in the election.
The SDF is taking part in the election because I have told you even on this panel that we have decided that for no reason shall we boycott any elections. You are asking how are we going to carry campaigns in the northwest and southwest. We are calling on the northwesterners and the southwesterners to understand that while you are fighting for your rights, you should have a second plan. If we have a head of state who is listening to them, and we know that our candidate listens to them, he has been abroad to talk to the diaspora, who are a backbone of what is going on in the country. He has spoken to them, and he's assuring them that if we come to power, we will find a solution to
the crisis. Thank you so much, Mr. John DANGLE KUMAZE, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
once again for coming.
Me. I am always available.
The pleasure is ours. That is the National Organizing Secretary of the Social Democratic Front, describing election as a plan B to the Anglophone crisis. They're bringing us to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. We wish you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye. Up next, the continuation of the Zone 2. Stay with us.